7-win type teams. I can't wait to let 18 to 22-year-olds emotionally ruin me.
I made a call, to Vegas. I said, look, we actually need the favorite here.
Welcome again, everyone, to Bruce and the Bear. I am the Bear, Chris Fallica. Bruce Feldman, he was with us last year in person, but he's bigger and better now. He's going to be in studio on Friday and Saturday for Fox's college football coverage. You know the drill by now. Over the next 20, 25 minutes or so, we're going to rip you through all of the news and headlines, both in terms of information, betting angles that Bruce and Sammy P come up with. Hopefully we can educate you what you're going to be watching on Saturday and maybe make a few bucks along the way. Bruce, it's a historic opening week in college football. 3 top 10 matchups, 6 teams that I think most people expect to see in the college football playoffs. So I'm going to turn it over to you. Where do you want to start the show?
Bear, we got to start where you are. I mean, it's the biggest game of the weekend, 1 versus 2. So much intrigue and so much uncertainty and so many unknowns. I mean, Texas going there to play the team that knocked them out of the playoff last year, the Ohio State Buckeyes. So obviously the biggest headliner is Arch. It's really his team now. That is getting so much attention, and rightly so. But there's a lot of uncertainty around him. You got to replace 4 starting offensive linemen. Your best, probably most talented offensive lineman, Trevor Gooseby, he's been banged up at camp. We think he's going to play, but is he going to be close to 100%, right? So that's a big thing. He's their most athletic offensive lineman. They're really excited about him, but he has been banged up. The run game, we think they're going to lean on that. I mean, that was Trey Wisner's one of the best, I want to say best kept secrets because he broke out last year, but he's still, I think, really underrated. And now you're going to go play an Ohio State team that has to replace pretty much the entire D-line and also Jim Knowles, who did a terrific job as defensive coordinator. So Matt Patricia comes down from the NFL, and we're going to see how that goes. I'm fascinated. We know that Ohio State still has probably the best player in college football in Jeremiah Smith at receiver.
Maybe the best two players if you include Caleb Downs, maybe the 2 best players.
Yeah, and probably the best defensive player, and they got a lot of studs at linebacker for Patricia to work with. The game, though, is in Columbus. That is a tough ask for a team replacing its almost entire offensive line and a really inexperienced quarterback. We know Sark is a terrific play caller. We saw him last year against an NFL defensive coordinator early in the season when he lit up Wink Martindale's defense in Ann Arbor. Bear, I like Texas long term, but I like Ohio State here just because of the newness of going on the road. How do you feel about this one?
Yeah, long term, obviously, I like both these teams, but I think you kind of alluded to it, like the element of surprise that Ohio State has going for it with a first-time offensive play caller in Brian Hartline. And I'm sure Ryan Day will be heavily involved in the game planning and maybe getting in Hartline's ear every now and then on a big play. And you've got Matt Patricia, where I don't think Texas really knows what to expect from Ohio State defensively as a result of that. You mentioned Trey Wisner, too, for Texas. Remember, C.J. Baxter back from injury as well. So they're pretty deep in the backfield. But I think the kind of the little bit of the unknown here with Ohio State, and I think Ryan Day and that coaching staff can kind of lean on, hey, this is a group that's really, your team won the national title last year, but you guys really haven't done anything. Those guys who were responsible for the title, they're gone, with the exception of a couple of players. I think there's a good bit of motivation and a good bit of edge. Look, these 2 teams play 50 times. They're probably both going to win 25 times each. But tomorrow, I'm with you. I lean Buckeyes.
To me, the other thing that's interesting is Chip Kelly, now he's with the Raiders. He's not there anymore, loves to run the football. And you lose those 2 elite running backs who also went to the NFL, Travion Henderson and obviously Quinshon Judkins. I think there's a big drop-off in talent level, not just experience in the backfield, but we'll see. As you said, Brian Hartline, receiver guy. Will he and Julian Sayin really lean on those guys more than the guys behind him? So fascinating on a lot of levels. Normally, Bear, I would say the next game would be such a headliner. It's in Death Valley. It's in Clemson's Death Valley. LSU going there.
Make sure you specify which Death Valley, A or B.
I know you never have to normally until this. It's like, which UT is it? Well, now we know. Look, in terms of the Tigers in this game, Brian Kelly has not shied away about the magnitude of this matchup. He's lost all his openers since he's been at LSU, and it's a tough one going there to play a really talented and experienced Clemson team. But what he's done is he's put Clemson tiger paws all over the LSU facility just to make sure, if they didn't know, this is a big, big game for them. Now, look, I really like Garrett Nussmeier. I think he's an extremely talented, legit first-round talent as a quarterback. He's got a lot of experience last year. He's very savvy, very smart, got some gunslinger in him. A little bit, though, like what we just talked about with Arch Manning, his team has to replace 4 starting O-linemen, too. Remember, Will Campbell, top 5 pick. Now he's with the Patriots. They had 3 other offensive linemen who also played in the Senior Bowl. Like, these were good players who are now moved on. But I think the difference here with LSU is I don't know how well they're going to run the football, right? I think that that's the big question mark. Brian Kelly added Alex Atkins, who'd been the O-line guy at Florida State, to help kind of lean into the run game. Will Joe Sloan, the offensive coordinator, lean on that run game? They have a ton of speed. Brian Kelly has said they tripled the payroll from last year. They've gone all in on the portal, and this is his most talented team. But when you look at Nussmeier, as good as he is, when they played ranked teams last year, 1-3, 8 touchdowns, 8 picks, and this is a tough test out of the gate because you're seeing a Clemson team that not only has Cade Klubnik and really good receivers now, but you're seeing a Clemson team that I think may have 4 first-round picks on its defense alone, and that's just next year. That's not even talking about Sammy Brown, the terrific young sophomore linebacker they got who's not draft eligible. Peter Woods is going to be a big problem for LSU in the middle of the line. He's a dominant defensive lineman. He's one of my freaks list guys. He could be a top 5 pick. And then you add in Tom Allen, comes from Penn State to be the defense coordinator. They were out of sync last year. They were talented, but just really kind of undisciplined and a little bit lost. Everything I've heard out of Clemson is those guys are really dialed in and much more focused on their assignments. I think this is a tough ask for the LSU Tigers right out of the gate to go play this team in week 1.
How great would it be if Clemson came out with the with a little purple in there, the purple tops and the purple bottoms as well. So not only are we the real Death Valley, we're the real team in purple. Look, we've talked about it leading up to the season. I am not sold that this Clemson team is preseason 1, 2, 3 type good. I think we're largely hyping them up based on the fact that they got into the ACC championship game because Miami blew a 3-touchdown lead, and they played Clemson. I think they played Texas a little bit closer in the college football playoff, and SMU spotted them 14 points with turnovers out of the gate. So while I see the path to an ACC title and a playoff berth, I'm pumping the brakes just a little bit on this Clemson hype. I think LSU could go there and win. I think LSU might prove by the end of the year to be the best team in the SEC. What I'm curious about is which team can handle a loss better here. I think we're both in agreement that Clemson losing really doesn't change their long-term goals because they're probably in the best position to win the ACC. But if LSU were to lose, like you said, after putting all of those eggs in this basket, pumping this game up because Brian Kelly's lost his 3 openers at LSU and didn't cover the 3 at Notre Dame prior to that. If they were to come out of the gate with all the money and resources they put into the portal and you still lose in the opener, see what happens.
Yeah, I agree. And, from that side of it, remember, Clemson got destroyed by Georgia in the opener last year.
Never a game. As you said. Never a game.
Yeah, and they found a way to get in, it was a circuitous route. They lose to Clemson. They lose to South Carolina late in the year at home, but they find a way to get in thanks to Miami's porous defense.
Blowing out the Louisville at home?
Yeah, it was a weird season, but I think Klubnik got a lot better as the year went on. And so, going to be interesting to see. The other thing is Dabo doesn't have to worry about job security. Brian Kelly, I genuinely think does. I know his buyout's huge, but I could see LSU, if he gets off to a bad start, and that includes losing this game, and then they don't have that much time bounce back. Week 3, they play a Florida team that beat them last year, and I think Florida's more talented than they were last year. But to get it back to Miami and that defense, they're going to have an interesting test. It's a Sunday night game. It's the 3rd of the top 10 matchups. Notre Dame comes in there. C.J. Carr, first-time real starting quarterback. He's got a terrific backfield. We know about Jeremiah Love. Jadarian Price is really, really good. Nolan James is a freshman from New Jersey, former BC commit, who I've heard great things about from the guys I talked to in South Bend. So there's a deep backfield. You expect them to lean on it a lot on Sunday night, just because, again, CJ Carr, he's a talented passer, but it's his first big test. It's really his first test of any kind at Notre Dame, and it's there. And I think you're going to see, obviously, a much different defense from Miami, with Corey Heatherman taking over. He comes from Minnesota, did a really good job of kind of keeping everything in front of their players. Miami, 91st in the country last year and giving up plays of 20-plus yards. The Minnesota defense, they were 4th in the country in that regard. So people are excited about the defense. Then the other big thing with Miami is, obviously, you get Carson Beck coming to the Canes. A down year last year. He was hyped up going into the year. NFL scouts thought he could have been a first-round pick if he had come out.
Heisman favorite going into last year.
Yeah, and then, no Brock Bowers, no Ladd McConkey. He forced a lot of stuff, and then he got hurt, in the Texas game, in the SEC title game. Miami folks are very, very high on what they've seen from him. Very cerebral, as really accurate, and they like his ability to get the ball out. I think he's playing behind a really good offensive line. As you know, Bear, Mario Cristobal, Alex Miller-Ball, his right-hand guy, they know offensive line play as well as anybody. I think this Miami team is going to surprise some folks who expect, there's no Cam Ward now, and Carson Beck's the guy we saw last year at Georgia who was kind of sputtering. Remember, going into last year, that the NFL had like a 5th-round grade on Cam Ward. He got into Shannon Dawson's system with Miami's O-line, and he really blossomed. I think we'll see a similar kind of bounce back or big steps forward from Carson Beck in this system with Shannon Dawson. I don't know if it's going to be something where they're going to take a Notre Dame defense. Again, new defensive coordinator here too. Al Golden's back in the NFL. Chris Ash takes over the defense. I don't know, Bear. What's your feeling on your alma mater here on a big night game?
Well, I've said to some people over the last couple of days that I haven't been, only like twice in the last, once really, in the last 10, 15 years, I've been this excited for a football season. And the previous time was when Aaron Rodgers' season lasted 3 plays for the Jets. So I'm sure I'm getting ready for ultimate disappointment here for Miami. But we had Mario Cristobal on Bear Bets earlier in the week, and he talked about stacking the recruiting classes, plugging in certain positions in the portal. And they've done a great job of it. And I think this is the year where it does ultimately reap its dividends, and you see the rewards of the grinding that Cristobal and Mirabal and their staff have done on the recruiting trail. I think people are going to be surprised at how good the Miami defense is. Bain has dropped a ton of weight. He's on an NFL contract drive. The secondary is totally revamped. I don't think you're going to see people out of position and miss tackles like you did last year. Now, how the scheme lines up with what Notre Dame can do at quarterback with Carr and getting the ball to a group of wide receivers that they feel really good about. I think they have some things that they can expose in Miami's scheme defensively. But like I said, I'm scared with how good I feel about Miami in this game on Sunday. And I think between the motivation of Beck and the home crowd advantage, it's going to be raucous down there on Sunday night. So it's funny. One of the sportsbook directors that I spoke with in Vegas said, I saw the line move to 3, and I said, "Wow, this game moved to 3?" And he's like, "The amount of public money we've gotten on Notre Dame is incredible, and we just took a massive bet at Miami +3 from one of our most respected players. So maybe I'm on the right side here, and maybe it's going to work out for the old Canes here."
All right, Bear. Let's bring in one of our most respected players, our favorite, Sammy P. He joins us each week to give us a lot of insight into how the sportsbook world is looking at things. Sammy P, what do you got for us this week?
First and foremost, boys, I need the U on Sunday night. That's number one. But let's get to the walkthrough. It is an avalanche of Texas money, and it doesn't appear to be looking to stop. So last night, Circus Sports in Vegas took a $550,000 bet on Texas.
Is that you?
They actually moved. No, it was not me. I think it was Bruce, actually. Texas moved to a 1-point favorite They eventually wrote some Ohio State money, but it is one-way action. The books desperately need Ohio State because the wise guys came in, took 3, 2.5, and 2, and now the public is sort of piling on. I have a quote from my buddy Mo Pearson at Wynn Resorts. They're jamming Texas like no other. So the sports books are rooting for the Buckeyes. I think the sports books will be happy to hear this too, guys. Ohio State has won 25 straight Week 1 games. 25. They're hoping it hits 26.
All right, Sammy P. Another pretty intriguing matchup is Alabama at Florida State. I know you got some good scoop from the book. What do you got for us?
So I work for the BetMGM network. We get bet splits all the time. And the number one bet side across the country is Alabama. 91% of the bets are on Alabama. Now, this number has hit 14 basically all over the country now. The books need Florida State. Believe it or not, after last season's disaster in Tallahassee, there's not a big appetite to bet Florida State there.
Yeah, go imagine that. Preseason top 10 to 2-10 doesn't exactly still a lot of confidence. But, I mean, look, if you're Florida State, you brought in Gus Malzahn. You've changed a lot on your coaching staff. You brought in Tommy Castellanos at quarterback to try and run that Malzahn offense. Like, this is kind of do or die for Mike Norvell in Tallahassee. If they were to throw up another 5-7, 6-6 type year, it could be the end there. But I'm with you here. I have to see it from Alabama. I'm just assuming Bama's back. Oh, they're going to bounce back from the 9-4 season that they had last year. Biggest part of Alabama football is now sitting on the college game day, Nick Saban. So I know Ryan Grubb is there now to call the offense. I know Ty Simpson, who's been there for a while, is now the quarterback. I know they brought in transfer wide receiver alongside Ryan Williams. Couldn't run the ball worth a lick last year. I know the offensive line is experienced and big, so we'll see if that translates on the field. Defensively, they don't have the guys on the edge, those twitch guys to get at the passer like they normally. Look, this is first world problem because we're talking about an Alabama program that was so great, but I am not sold that they are this legitimate national title contender far and away like everybody else seems to be.
Bear, I was down in Tuscaloosa a few weeks ago. I think I'm pretty bullish on the Tide. I think the arrival of Ryan Grubb, remember, he was the offensive coordinator, longtime protege of Kalen DeBoer. When they were together at Washington and Michael Penix, they put up a huge season offensively. I think Ty Simpson's going to be a lot better than people think. He's a lot more athletic than people think. He really had made leaps and bounds from where he was early in the spring, all the time with Grubb, settled down. I think that's good. We know he has Ryan Williams and a really dynamic group of receivers. The injury issues here are a little bit concerning. Jam Miller's by far their best running back. When I was down there, he looked really good. He was probably not going to be back until the Georgia game in probably almost a month. Tim Keenan's their best defensive lineman. He's the leader of the defense. That's a little concerning. I know they're still talented up there. The other thing that is a little bit, I get why people are hesitant. The last 5 games that they have played outside of Tuscaloosa, they've lost 4 of them. That's so unlike Bama. But I'm a believer, so I'm gonna ride with the Tide. Sammy P, on the other end of the spectrum here, you got an Arizona team that was reeling last year. You got a Hawaii team that's coming off a very emotional come-from-behind win over Stanford last week. I know you're fired up about this matchup. What has got your blood flowing?
Well, this is the most important quarterback for me this week. It's Micah Alejado at Hawaii, who was basically, guys, playing on one leg against Stanford. And it took theatrics and heroics to get past the mighty one-win Stanford. I think Stanford's going to be 1-11 this year. But Alejado was in a boot Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. Wednesday, he gets on the field. He's in a red jersey. He's throwing flat-footed. Nobody's even going near him. But Timmy Chang, the head coach, says they expect him to play. We shall see. The market doesn't seem to care. On Sunday, this line was Arizona minus 14. We're out to 17.5 and 18 right now. I was texting beat reporters and TV reporters, and none of them know. Nobody knows. But if they rule him out on Saturday, this line will continue to move. Here's where I'm at, Bear. The schedule gets very easy after this game. You should lose no matter what. If you have Alejado or not, then you have 4 straight games. You can win all 4 of them, assuming your quarterback is healthy.
All right, good stuff, Sammy P. All right, Bear, we're into the 2-minute drill. What do you got for us? What's most exciting to you?
Well, one of the things that people like to look forward to in the opening week of the year, these Power 4 teams versus the Group of 5, and which team can potentially pull an upset. And I don't know how many likely possibilities there are, but one game which has a massive point spread that has my attention is UTSA going to Kyle Field. Now, I don't think the Roadrunners are going to go to A&M and win, but I do think if they play well, and if you look at the remainder of their schedule, there's a chance that they could be favored in every single game the rest of the year. They're a team built at the line of scrimmage, especially on that offensive line, deep at running back, McCown the quarterback. I think with how poor the Mountain West has looked to start the year so far, with Boise State getting annihilated in South Florida, there's a really good chance that the winner of the AAC is going to go to the college football playoff. And remember, UTSA gets favored Tulane in San Antonio at home. So keep your eye on the Roadrunners there as a potential G5 rep to the playoff.
All right, Bear, another matchup I know you're excited about. I'm very intrigued by. It's an old school Pac-12 matchup, sort of. It is Utah at UCLA. This is the debut of Nico Iamaleava for the Bruins. People I've talked to around Westwood have said he's picked up the offense probably faster than they even hoped. He's looked really good. I think they see him as a huge upgrade talent-wise than any quarterback they've had there in quite some time. So how are we feeling about this team against a Utah program really looking for a bounce back from a disappointing 2024?
Yeah, Bruce, it's not exactly Pac-12 after dark like we have this weekend with Cal Oregon State, but this is a very intriguing game for me because I think Utah deserves to be favored in the Big 12 to win that league. And if they're as good with Dan Pierre coming in at quarterback now, they've got to go to Westwood and win. This team rebuilt offensive line, new quarterback. I think Kyle Whittingham wanted to call it a career last year, but the Utes obviously disappointed. I think he feels pretty good about this team and the makeup of this team. So really intriguing game at the Rose Bowl on Saturday between Utah and UCLA. And it's another really intriguing game, at least for you and I, who have a bunch of feeling towards our friend Jim Donnan, who, of course, head coach at Marshall, head coach at Georgia. Oh, by the way, Marshall Thundering Herd at Georgia Bulldogs Saturday in Athens, where, by the way, Coach Don, who hasn't been in the best of health lately, he's feeling better, which is great, in Athens. Don't know if he's going to be able to get to the game, but tip of the cap to our guy, Jimmy D, who going to get a chance to see two of his former programs go off head-to-head in Athens on Saturday. That's all we got for now for this week. We'll be back again next week. Going to kind of recap what we saw in week one and look forward to week two. Obviously, I think the biggest game of the week. Week two, we got obviously Cy-Hawk coming up in Ames, and then we got Michigan, Oklahoma in Norman. So a lot to look forward to this season on Bear Bets, Bruce and the Bear. Appreciate everybody for watching, either on the YouTube channel, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. And always remember, the less you bet, the more you lose when you win.